that much easier, if not downright funnier, for scores of couples lucky enough to have discovered it. Greg and his wife Julie, who is here somewhere, there we go, went through 4 IVF cycles on their journey to parenthood before welcoming their son Connor in 2009. So thank you, Greg, for joining us.
Thank you.
Dr. Turek is an internationally known thought leader in men's reproductive sexual health care and research. He is also the founder and director of the Turek Clinic, a leading healthcare resource for men worldwide. Dr. Turek says his vision for the clinic is a place where timely, innovative care joins the wisdom of traditional medicine to not only treat, but actually solve the problems of reproductive age men. In addition, Dr. Turek is the recent recipient of a prestigious NIH grant for research designed to help infertile men become fathers using stem cells. So thank you, Dr. Turek, for joining us as well.
Thank you. Okay, I guess I'll start it out. Introduce myself a little bit. As was said, my name is Greg Wolfe, and I did write a book called How to Make Love to a Plastic Cup, a guy's guide to the world of infertility. And the reason why I felt it was necessary to write something like this is specifically, well, what this panel is about, male infertility. It's something that isn't given enough, there's not enough information out there for guys, at least presented to guys in a way for guys to get it. And I know that we had 4 sessions of IVF and then 1 sort of session with all the injections, but we didn't go the whole distance. But during that time, I had no idea what I was doing. And I mean, that's one of the problems with male infertility, not just the infertility in general, but especially male infertility, is a lot of times we're just sort of sitting there, and we're sitting there in the doctor's office nodding our head, just going, yeah, I totally understand. We don't know what's going on. And the books that are out there are specifically geared towards women for the most part because, well, that's the main audience for that. And when I asked, okay, well, what should I be reading? My wife looked at me like I just asked her for a platypus egg omelet. She had no idea what. She's like, I don't know. I think there's like a chapter in here for you or something, and it basically just said like, you're a guy, you have a penis, this is what it looks like, and this is it. There's really, and I felt bad, but at the same time, I felt that I really should be involved in this because this is a big deal. This is half mine, and so I asked her, I said, well, are there any books out there for me? And she said, well, no. And I said, well, there should be. And she said, okay, we'll go and write one. And I said, well, I can't write it. Oh, I guess I can. So I went out and, it took a while, but put together all the information that I would have loved to have had back when I was going through all this. And thus the book was born. And I really hope that it's widely read, not just, by women, obviously, so there's a lot of information there, but mostly for men. This was aimed for men so that they understand what's going on and how it all works and all the various options that are out there. And that's where I'm coming from in this. So enough talking about me. Let's talk about our guest here. Let's see. So Dr. Turek, we are privileged to have one of the top urologists, not only in the United States, but also in the world. He has been recognized as one of the best doctors in America. He's an internationally renowned master microsurgeon, and he's published hundreds of papers on male reproductive health. And he's also the founder of the Turek Clinic in San Francisco. It's one of the preeminent destinations for male fertility and men's sexual health care. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Turek.
Thank you, Greg. I love that title. I just love that. That's the perfect thing.
I got to say, just reading all that introduction, I actually felt pretty good because I put my DVDs in order last night, but you have a little more stuff going on right now. So I got to get moving on stuff. Let's see. So I guess you will explain a little more about male infertility, just the topic. And
yeah, so a little background. I'm an immigrant kid. My dad was from outside of Prague and was sort of raised to be a craftsman in a way, because he was. And really liked studying and did well in school. And then I decided I wanted to go into religion. So I wanted to be a religious guy. So I wanted to go to divinity school. But I really liked science, I learned in sort of high school, college. And then I came back and I did some stuff in England and did some research. And I said, this is really neat, sort of the foraging, the borders of biology. But religion's really cool because it's people and ethics and And I thought medicine's a really nice combination of those two, and did it, and liked it. And then when I got into medicine, you know, surgery residencies are really long roads, so you get a lot of time to think when you're not sleeping. And I liked male health in general. As a urologist, I liked those problems. But no one was in male health. There's no male health. I mean, men don't get any care, and they're really underserved. That's what I realized early on. Men are really underserved. Reproductive age men do not have a monthly cycle. They don't have a period. They don't have anything. They're immortal. And they go to the doctor when they're in pain or their life is threatened. Right? So one way of being life threatened is, honey, if you don't go to the doctor, I'm going to leave you. Okay. So personal threats or pain gets them to a doctor. And that's, you know, that's bad. It's good and it's bad. So I also realized the field of men's health really doesn't have much research going on. Back then, it was really wide open, and especially fertility. The first fertility doctor was my mentor in Houston, and he basically, as a resident at Penn in surgery, started a male fertility clinic at Penn. That was the first one in the 70s, and men had nowhere to go, nowhere. They were a semen analysis. Men were a semen analysis, and that's been for about 50 years. So there's a lot to do here. There's a lot to do here to change this, and you know that's why I like this, Greg's whole thing about just take charge and get educated, because educated men do equally as well as educated women when it comes to healthcare. So that's been my mantra: is men are underserved, I believe, and I care, and that's really how simple it is.
Well, Finn, yeah, that's as I said, that's so important that guys know what's going on, not just. And the thing that I notice is, it kind of leads us into the discussion a little bit, that when we talk about infertility, so many times, especially if you're watching TV or you're watching any of the talk shows or whatnot, when they talk about infertility, they talk about women and infertility. They'll say, you know, the woman is barren, or the woman, whatever it may be, they'll go through in that way, and they never talk about the guy. And I know from personal experience, obviously, when we went to get tested, and it literally, in my mind, there was no way that it had to do with me. We were thinking, oh no, you know, poor Julie, what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it? And it turns out, and then we get to me, and we find out that my
something's wrong.
Semen. Oh yeah, no, it was bad. Oh. It was bad stuff. I mean, it was bad in every single way. It was the count, the morphology, the cut, the clarity. It was all bad. It was just 100% bad. It was a very low grade. In fact, it was such a low grade.
But it doesn't reflect your personality.
No, not me personally. No, I'm fantastic. But the sperm, ooh, boy, that was crap, just terrible. So, and when we found out, I was stunned. I thought, well, what do you mean men infertile? I mean, that's, you know, yes, if you come back from war and you have things blown off or something, okay. But if it's not just a normal, healthy, and I've always been a healthy guy. So, the question: how common is it for males to be infertile? And what does that actually mean? Like, what does it mean when a guy is infertile?
Sure. So let's talk a little, because it's sort of about the basics. Ryan, can you help me? So there's a map of the world there. So this is far more common than you think. So it's not a U.S. problem. It's not a developed country problem. It's a worldwide problem. Undeveloped countries, some of them have high birth rates, but if you look at the majority of them, they're 6- or 7-fold worse. I mean, there's a lot of disease out there. This is a disease, okay? This is not a phenomenon. This is not a wart that comes off. This is a disease, and it's an epidemic by any measure, except maybe the flu season this year. So it's 1 in 6 reproductive age couples. And if you look at the causes that come through, the data is largely driven by female fertility, because women get asked the question and they get really evaluated, but men don't. So it's biased, but probably 1/3 of cases you will find something in the man to be the problem, and probably half the cases you see you'll find the man to be a contributing problem. So, you know, conservatively 1/3, and then involved a half. And if you look at semen analyses from men who come in with infertility, an issue of infertility, then you'll see about half of them are normal and half of them aren't. And, but that's not really, so infertility is defined as any couple trying for a year, however you want to try, upside down, right side up. Whatever you do, if you tried for a year, in your mind, that's infertility. And that to me is the start. That's a biomarker. So if you look at, there's a lot of this talk maybe on sterility, because I'm going to show you something you've never seen before, nor has anyone else. But if you look at the group of men that have no sperm count, so this is the subset of infertile men with no sperm count, it's about 5 to 10% of infertile couples in general. And there's 8 million infertile couples, so it's a big chunk. It's about 300,000 maybe men in America offhand. And if you look at what's being introduced into the system, the cancer survivors, if you look at young cancer survivors coming in, there's about 55,000 new cancer survivors a year who are sterile coming in. So that's the extreme of clearly the male factor part. And sterility, having a sperm count versus not having a sperm count is a very different thing for a man. Because having a sperm count means technology. There's always a conveyor belt you can use to have a kid. But if you have no sperm, it's a different biological hit, I think, and men take it differently. And I have a blog on this on turekonmenshealth.com called That Asospermic Feeling, and it's just wildly popular. And my favorite line is, I had a biological identity crisis when I heard that. That's very accurate.
Yeah, because I mean, that's one of the things that as a guy, you're sort of pre-programmed in your mind to say, okay, you can do a couple of things. You can kill spiders and you can have a baby. Those are the things you're biologically you can do.
And that's a reasonable assumption.
And
so
I can see where that's.
So the evaluation is simple, and in my office it's one visit, and I do the rest by phone. They need to be prepared. The patients, we get as much as we can locally or wherever. But it's really 4 things. It's a history, like any doctor, a physical exam, very important, and a semen analysis or 2, and a set of hormones if indicated, and maybe some other testing like genetics, etc. And the goal of that is threefold. I mean, is there a problem here that I can treat and cure? Because honestly, couples rather have kids at home. So Woody Allen said, in Annie, he said, he didn't say, but that he's about sex. He said that was the best, most fun. How he quips a lot on comedy. He says that's the most fun I ever had without laughing. So couples really prefer that. So doing a lifestyle change, which is the first real move, and then maybe considering pills for men, the second real move. Those are conceiving at home. Fixing problems in men, varicoceles, other things, blockages, are also conceiving at home. So that's my goal. I don't do IVF, all that stuff. It's great. It's changed everything, but they would still rather conceive at home, and that's my goal. And then the third thing I put on the list is sperm processing and assisted reproduction. It's always an option. It's always an option for couples. But I find a lot of them get a bad semen analysis and come to me, and they've already been to IVF, just at least a visit, and they're kind of overwhelmed by it. And I don't tell them what to do. I just say, here are potentially some other options, and you have to fit it into your timeline. The most important thing is to get control. And every time the guy is glazed over. He's in the office, he's just like, what's happening here? It's something, I can't have a kid. I can see the glaze come over.
Like a donut. It's true, because we don't know anything. We don't, it's not something that's in our wheelhouse. Yeah, that's not, when we go in there, we're not expecting to be told, you can't have a child.
So if you ask me what's the most important thing, it's really the history. So if a man has prior paternity, or there's paternity in the relationship, that is really important, because that tells me sparks are flying, and look for some change. If it's a second kid, and there's an interval of 5 years, I ask, okay, who changed the most in the last 5 years with this couple trying to have a second kid? Is it the guy or the woman? And you look for intervening things. But I'm a big lifestyle guy. I mean, I published a paper on hot tubs, and we took a bunch of guys out of hot tubs. It had to go to a Brazilian journal, because they do a lot of hot tubbing in Brazil. And I was on the editorial staff of the journal, which helped. But it didn't go to America, it didn't go to California, it didn't go anywhere in America, because everyone said, well, we know that. We know that hot tubs cause a problem. I said, okay, well, that's your view, but this proves it. I mean, you take guys out there, and sperm counts went up by 600% over 3 to 6 months, 400% by 3 months. I mean, it was a huge deal. Sperm production is an engine, and it wants to run hard. It's constantly running hard. And what you do is you can drop it. So it is a biomarker. If your sperm count's not normal, look at the man. What's he doing? How much pot? Is he in hot tubs? What's he doing to overheat things? What's his diet like? How much overweight is he? And a lot of those things, body mass index relates to sperm count, whether it's low or high. It's sort of like females, right? Marathon runners with no body fat don't ovulate well. Men who are too thin don't make sperm production well. So you're starving your body. Likewise, if you're overweight, you're stressing your body. Regular daily lifestyle stress. So I have a blog about know your woolly mammoths. As a man, what are your woolly mammoths? We're cavemen. 100,000 years ago, we were cavemen with loincloths. He wears a loincloth. I'm just kidding.
No, I do. I just didn't know it showed.
And, we're not different. I mean, our nervous system is built for either fight or flight or rest and restore. Parasympathetic, sympathetic, parasympathetic. Same nervous system 100,000 years ago. So what's our woolly mammoth? Is it travel stress? It could be. Is it emotional stress? Is it financial stress? Is it physical stress? An Olympic athlete has low testosterone. That's utter physical stress on the body. Testosterone is not high when you're stressing your body out. It's a rest and restore molecule. So do you want to have an erection and have a kid when you're being chased by a woolly mammoth? No, it's the last thing on your mind, right?
No.
You do?
In Vegas. It's one of the things. No, it's an interesting way of saying it, just the whole fight. Because I'm a teacher, and that's one of the things I explain is the whole fight or flight reflex and the way it affects the human body. That you've got your body chemistry just completely changes, no matter how however it reacts to it. It just ends up changing it. So it makes perfect sense that it would.
Right. So that's sort of the way I look at men, and I look at him as an individual. It's almost very holistic, and I say, what are you doing? What are you doing in life? I see a low motility, or I look for poisons. What's he doing to poison this system that wants to run hard? It wants to run hard, unless there's a genetic issue or whatever. So the assumption is it will run hard, and everyone says, how do I get a higher sperm count? You can't get a higher sperm count if you're taking great care of yourself. You're running full tilt.
We're also talking about poisons like alcohol and things like that.
All things in moderation. Treat your body like a temple. So you take great care of yourself, you're much more likely to have a better sperm count and more fertile semen analysis. And even comes to diet. I'm a big fan of the paleo diet. Why? Caveman. Right? You're caveman.
I'm very into the caveman thing.
I am. The Geico
like
guy,
that.
right? The
Yeah.
Geico guy. So I did a lecture at Google, and it's on YouTube, and that's what I used, the Geico guy, and it was the caveman analogy because it fits. I mean, it's just essentials. And look at the paleo diet. I mean, it's kind of mod, and it's very stringent in ways, but it's fruits, vegetables, nuts, and lean meats, unprocessed foods. Foraging diet, right? Grab some fig off the tree in your loincloth, and et cetera. So, but that's fully antioxidant diet. It's a great antioxidant diet. It's probably the future of the heart diet. It's probably the future of the cancer diet. It's probably the future of everything. So I say, take a male preconception pill if you need it, like a prenatal for men like women do, but if you're eating airport food, but if you're eating a fabulous antioxidant diet, then you probably don't need anything, and that's not the issue. But it's even as simple as that. So the body's really sensitive to this stuff. So that's the evaluation, and you come to a conclusion, usually over the phone, and pick a direction, and it depends on the whole goal. And of course, the female factor is a part of it. And I have more complex figures on our booth. You'll see a paper with all the algorithms. But if the partner's 42 and going like this in the whole visit, then you're just going to give advice. They're going to do what they're going to do based on that. So I don't tell 40-year-old women what to do. So that's it for that.
Now, I was going to ask, and it's just this coming up here. Is it possible to actually find sperm where there is no sperm? I mean, this is something when you say that there are some men not just with low sperm but with no sperm, and you think, oh, give up, it's all done. Why? I don't say that, but there's some people that would say that. I don't like those people. But if they just say, I give up, there's absolutely nothing I can do. So is that a possibility now?
Yes, I'd say of all the men who come in fertility problem, about 5% will have no sperm. So it's pretty common in the population. It's probably 1 out of 1,000 men in general. So it's very common. But it's very, disheartening. So it's very important to those couples, and it usually is a wall. And unfortunately, a lot of general practitioners and even urologists aren't well educated on the options here. But it's a simple analogy. If you have an engine and you're looking and you're standing behind the car and there's no exhaust, and you got to ask the question: is the engine running or not? So if the engine's running and the exhaust is blocked, there's no exhaust. And so that's one reason. The other is the engine's not running, exhaust is open. I'm a Midas guy. I mean, I really like fixing exhausts because it's microsurgery. It's really fun. So you can do that, but you check the exhaust. So 80% of the time when someone's azoospermic or no sperm, they have an engine problem. So you open up the hood and the engine's not running well, and that's the issue. 20% of the time it's an exhaust problem. And those are very grateful men because there's an 8 out of 10 chance they could have an opportunity at home to conceive after you're through with them, and you don't have to go to technology a lot of times. So in the 20% that aren't blocked and the engine's the problem, you can either tune the engine or you can't. And there are genetic conditions where you can tune them, and I saw one the other day from another state who no one knew what to do with them. Small testicles, no sperm, hormones, I just ordered them and they were undetectable. So he has no signal to make sperm, so you give him the signal. So you give the same medications for IVF to a man. And in a year or so, they'll have a kid naturally with a very high rate. So there are non-obstructive, non-blocked conditions that you can actually reverse medically, typically. And then most of them, however, are going to be not fixable, probably due to genetic causes, either definable or not. So you say, well, what do you mean? There's no genetics in my family. This doesn't run in my family. I have 8 brothers and sisters. So I have a blog on that called Fitting Into Your Genes, Genes. And it's really not Mendelian genetics. So this is not a genetic problem like, eye color, ethnicity, sex, and a lot of other conditions.
Although they do say that if your parents aren't able to have kids, chances are you're going to have a problem having kids.
Yeah, so there's that.
Nobody? Nothing? Okay. Think about it for a second. Okay.
He's touching me.
Sorry.
I'm
IVF
trying
humor.
to get serious.
A little IVF humor. Sorry. I heard genetics. Okay.
So chromosomal issues are pretty easy to spot. So if something's happening on a chromosome, those are large chunks of, like buildings, if they move around in a city. But non-chromosomal issues are more complex. So there's this whole non-Mendelian. Mendel was a monk who played with peas and learned about chromosomal inheritance in the 1800s, did great work. And but there's non-Mendelian. So non-Mendelian is stuff that's new. So your father didn't have it. Your brother doesn't have it. You have it. So how can that be? Because the genome, we're actually pith. We're cavemen, but we're pith for our gonads. So sperm and eggs have a different agenda. They have a very long evolutionary view, and you're just surrounding it for the moment. You're just like the pith of an apple around the seeds. And so they have a much longer view about the species, which is, don't make a mistake and get cancer, reproduce, do whatever you want after that, but just reproduce because that's how the species maintain. So sperm and sperm production, they're flipping off mutations constantly, hundreds. 65 per generation at last count from a big paper in Nature. And the egg sees those mutations during fertilization and says, acceptable or not, and fixes some of them and lets some of them go. That's evolution. So eggs don't evolve, sperm evolves. Eggs corrects the problem. It's sort of like what happens in people. So that's really the evolution. The egg says, show me your stuff, and the sperm comes in with this new look. It's completely different from the next sperm or the next generation or whatever, and says, okay, which ones of these are going to go through? Can I fix it? Do I accept this or not? 3,500 genes turn on day 3, day 2 in the dish at IVF, fixing things. It's just DNA mismatch repair, DNA repair. And some of it gets through and some of it doesn't. And the Y chromosome alone is a hall of mirrors. I mean, it's a chromosome that doesn't have a partner. There's an X and Y, but there's no mate. So it has to combine with itself every time. So that's another source of new mutations because it's folding on itself, doing gene conversions and things like that, which are very fancy, but it's messing itself up a little bit, so it's becoming a remnant. So it's got a whole different kind of preservation pathway than the rest of the chromosomes do. So it's all different. So you have to explain that because it's not you, it's genetics, but it's a different form of genetics, which doesn't mean much for whether you have sperm or not. So it's a separate discussion. And so when it comes to sperm, you can look at pretty closely, but most men whose engines aren't running well, who can't be fixed, will have sperm, most. And the question is, how do you find it? So there's lots of ways. There's a big program in New York called Cornell, and they do microdissection, which is impressive procedure. Lots of ways. I don't like it very much. I do it. But I do this. It's called mapping. And this is a way in the office in an hour so that you can figure out weeks later whether someone has sperm. It's diagnostic. It's pretty pain-free. It's non-surgical. And I basically figure out, I create a map of the testicle in a know before you go way. And it tells you whether there's sperm there. Also tells you what else is there. And then you would say, okay, you're one of those guys who does have sperm. And then now you'll need a sperm retrieval. And that sperm retrieval is done with IVF, because any sperm from a man's body that's not ejaculated needs IVF. It's too immature. And then you go forward and do it live with that as a guide. So you can, and I tell patients, take it anywhere you want, go anywhere you want, show it to anybody. It's a map. And it's very powerful. So one of the things about maps that I've learned is the more you look, the more you find. So here's a graph from a paper that's available at our cubicle there that we published, looking at, on the bottom line is, how hard you look, how many sites you look at a testicle, and on the vertical bar, it's what the chance of finding sperm is. And these are published papers on the topic. So the more you look, the more you find. So if you do a simple biopsy in a man with non-obstructive azoospermia, you'll probably have a 30% chance of finding sperm. If you do something more complicated, it may go as high as 60, and mapping at the 18th is around 60. So that's why I said most men will have sperm. But what I've noticed since I actually made this graph and published it is it's not linear. So that does not continue to rise at the same rate. It's not a line anymore, it's flattening out. So if I go to 30 sites, am I going to get a better yield than I do now? And the answer is really unclear, but I'd say, to me, I think we need to do something different. I think we need to look in 200 places and answer the question and look at it differently. And the question is that flat part of that curve on the left side of the right side for you of the graph, is that flat part biological limit, ceiling of what you're actually going to find, or is it a technical limit of the technology being not good enough? And we're going to figure that out. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure that out. So I've decided to try it this way. And this is called metabolomics. So there's genomics, which are your genes. And then there's RNA, which, genes make RNA, and that's transcriptomics, and you don't hear much about that. And there's proteomics, which is the proteins made from those RNA, made from that DNA. And then there's the products of whatever those proteins do, called metabolomics, which is chemistry, basically. What substances are in your body? And we've got some really neat stuff here that you can actually, there's a signature for a sperm. So in the body, there's a signature. So if you have, pretend you're in a desert, pretend you're in a rural area and there's a road, and there's no houses on the road, and you see a pile of bricks. And a pile of bricks are choline-containing compounds that make sperm membranes. So it's a pile of bricks, and you say, there's a pile of bricks there. There must be a house being built. So that's what you're looking for, the pile of bricks that indicates something's going on. Well, in a testicle, nothing's really going on of any merit, because cells that make hormones are pretty differentiated. Cells that make Sertoli cells, that nurse germ cells, are not reproducing a lot either. So the only activity in a testicle of merit, of notice, is sperm production. So you can quantify that, because you get signals from these bricks that are sitting there, like there is a big pile of bricks right there, not there, there. And we can actually localize that in 100 or 200 places in the testicle right now.
So you can find these bricks.
You can find a pile of bricks.
In your testicle.
And so what we're doing is called, bricks.
Yeah.
Little bricks.
It's good. Well, I would hope so.
So we
Show through the loincloth.
So by doing an MRI scan, just an MRI, non-radioactive MRI, and putting a microphone on the scrotum, which we're developing, you get a signal of all the compounds in that testicle, and you can actually divide it into 200 places in 3 dimensions and get a pattern, and you could say if it shows 10 bricks lighted up, and then you could have spots. So it would replace mapping, it would replace everything. It'd be a simple scan on a guy. And so this is in patent process.
I was going to ask, how new is this? Because when doing research for the book, I tried to go as deep as I could without getting too in the weeds, but this is something that I've never heard of before. Right. So is this, how recent is this?
So it's been on my mind for 15 years, but we just wrote the paper in 2010 and put the patent in, and I've been pretty quiet about it. Because but we're going to start a clinical trial as soon as the coil's done, because we've done it with biopsies in a dish and picked up the signal from them. It doesn't hurt tissue. It's non-invasive. You can do something with a tissue and then use it, because it's receiving signal, metabolic signal. It's not giving any signal, like an MRI, sort of like that. So I have a lot of, I'm spending a lot of time on this, and I think we might even have venture support for this now to do it. And my goal is to get this on the market as an app to an MRI machine. So basically you get a little coil and a little informatics package, and you sell it to an MRI manufacturer and say, you can now also do this with your scans. And I think in its most basic form, it could tell you whether you're a mammoth sperm count and it's either normal or not. I think we can do that today pretty quickly. Whether I can find sperm, pockets of sperm, tiny ones, is going to be yet to see. We have to see what so my patients are candidates for these studies, because that's some of the research I ask them. If you don't have sperm, do you want to be a candidate for research? And I think of it as a sort of a family. I try to give them hope where I can. And I call patients up and say, okay, I got this going now. The map went from 6 to 20 or whatever, 6 to 18. I call patients up, the guys with 6, I do 18, they have sperm. So, it evolved, and I realize it's an evolution. But this will probably answer that question pretty well, and it will really tell you a lot.
And this is just utilizing just MRI technology that we have now?
Yep, current technology. We need stronger magnets, but it's really easy to do. And the signals that are coming from these testicles are the largest signals in the biology of this field. So when you look at cancer of the prostate versus normal prostate, these signals aren't as strong as what you get from a normal testicle versus a testicle that's not doing a lot. They're very powerful signals. And it's the physical chemists just love these signals, because you make 1,000 sperm per heartbeat. There's a lot going on in there. There's a lot of membranes being built, right?
Wow.
But so that's good for guys with testicles who have stem cells, but there's a group of men who don't, who have maybe no germ cells, no stem cells, et cetera. And, and so there's going to be a group of men who won't have sperm on that, because that biological limit won't be 100%. I mean, it's going to go up a little bit probably. So this is the other thing I'm working on, and I had to quit academics to get this stuff done. It's just unbelievable how you're trying to get grants and being on 15 committees and stuff. But I'm very focused now. I mean, there's a couple of things I'm working on my bucket list.
You just weren't working on this like a couple hours every night?
Yeah.
After work? Just kind of going up in front of the TV? No, this is amazing. I'm looking at all this.
And so this is a little more complicated, but let me go through what I'm doing with stem cells, because this is a first a little bit. So there's pathways. This is an embryonic stem cell. These aren't very popular right now because they're, there it is, because they're politically charged, okay? So there's political, ethical issues around using embryos for stuff. So, but now you can actually, but if you took that cell, you could take an embryonic stem cell and you can make sperm out of that, okay? And you can make other kinds of tissues too. But you can also take the cells that come from embryos in an early testicle, and in animals, you can take a cell from a testicle from a neonate and you can drive that to sperm in a dish. So you can do that too. And this is the pathway to an adult testis. And we've shown and published that you can take an adult testicle and take the stem cells that are making those sperm, put them in a dish, and make stem cells out of it. So you can take a differentiated adult cell and go backwards to almost the embryo. So you can get what's called pluripotency. Phenomenal. So an adult cell making an embryonic cell. And it's really interesting, because the reason you can do it is because when you're an embryo and you're going to become a foot as a cell, right? Down the line, you're going to become a foot or a rib. The first thing an embryo does before it makes any other decisions is say, okay, you guys, these cells here become sperm or egg, and you allocate your germ cells to a special part of the embryo. And then you go on and make the bone and the foot and all that stuff. So when you're making this, the first move is to allocate germ cells. And so when you're sitting here and saying, how can I take a foot and make it into a stem cell, you've got to go a long way. And that's the Nobel Prize. That's taking a skin cell and turning it into an embryonic stem cell was the Nobel Prize last October from UCSF in Japan. And if you take a cell here and you push it back, you got much less to go. You could, boop, versus. So this involves DNA, transfection, all this stuff, very phenomenal. But this involves a push. We can do it without anything. We just do it in a dish. Put this cell, this testicular stem cell, in an environment that looks like a stem cell, it'll go back to a stem cell. Amazing. Not efficiently, but it'll do it. So it's very plastic. And that's what's neat. So the goal is to make some kind, say take, an adult testicle or an adult cell, not a blastocyst, but one of these, like a stem cell from a testicle or a skin cell, and make a sperm out of it, outside the body. The same. So right now you can take an embryonic stem cell, you can take an adult testis cell, and you can take a skin cell, and you can make sperm in a dish in mice. All of them. In those sperm, these are all really good papers, these sperm are fertile, and they make fertile mice. So the F1 is the mouse made from that. It's fertile. F2s are fertile. Amazing. So I like this.
So one cell can be made into many sperm cells? Is that what you're saying? That the one cell can be turned into many sperm cells?
Yeah, because the process works like that. It's exponential, like ants.
Oh.
So, but the fact is you can make a sperm out of it. So can we do it in humans? No. There's 5 groups in the US and the world working on it, and no one has made a sperm. One claim was made, but the paper was retracted. But in mice, it's really, so it's something different between human and mice. I don't know, maybe you know that, maybe you don't.
But the mouse IVF world is very excited about it.
Yeah. So we thought maybe the problem is because you can get about halfway in a dish with human cells. And these are the best scientists, stem cell scientists in California and in the country. Tony Atala, Jerry Shatton, Renee Ray-Opera. We said, you know what, maybe let's give it a perfect environment. Let's make a testicle for it. So a couple years ago, we started getting some minds together. So Renee Ray-Opera is an old colleague friend of mine from UCSF whose true love is sperm, even though she's now doing embryos and has a company to look at embryo quality. And then Sertoli Cells was Connie John from Mandelmed, who called me when my paper was published and said, you're working with this, I'm a Sertoli cell person, that's a big cell in the testicle. Got her on board. And then Juan Archego from Spain is the guy who does the stuff in the middle. And we got them all together and we got a grant from the NIH, which you paid for with your tax money. And we said, let's try to create the perfect environment to do this, because everyone seems to be stopping. It's doing it in mice, but we're not doing it in humans. So we said, what would this look like if we built a testicle? So you want to have a scaffold, and you want to paint it with Sertoli cells just to look like a tubule and give it that circular look. And then you want to put the sort of glue cells around the outside called stromal cells, because that's what a testicle looks like. And then there's hormone-producing cells called Leydig cells, and you probably want those in there. And then you just load this thing with germ cells. And these germ cells would be embryonic or adult stem cells, some stem cells, whatever you can get. So that's the goal. And this, my friends, is the first public presentation of a human artificial testicle.
Wow. That's fantastic. Now, do you have a name for this?
Yeah, there's Tom. Tom the testicle.
Tom the testicle.
So this has never been shown before. It's just 4 years of work. And, it's not implantable.
Yeah. I was going to ask. That's,
Do you want one?
Well, just to show off at the gym maybe once or twice.
It's about a foot long, and it's full of tubes, and it has to stay sterile for 70 days because it takes 70 days to make a sperm. So everyone's able to do it for a week in a dish, but this is 70 days, so it has to be a closed system. But you basically have fluid. This is the testicle right here. And you put fluid in, and it's all circular. There's 6 of them, and they're about 3 times the size of a tubule in a testicle, and you line it with Sertoli cells and other cells, and then you load it at one of these ports, and you turn it on its side so it coats the thing, And then you let it cook for 70 days, and we're hoping that sperm come out here at the other end because we have a flow in the system. Try to mimic normal biology. It's not possible without the right people who understand how it all fits together. So that's the first public showing of Tom. And what is it doing? Well, it runs, it's sterile, so it's been running for about 45 days. It runs like a lawnmower. It's just amazing how exuberant it is. It loves glucose. It loves sugar.
Don't we
It
all?
eats it up. Yeah, see,
Yeah.
just like its father. And it's you know, so it's sterile. It's viral free. It's everything. And we're thinking we got funded to turn this into a reproductive toxicology assay. So the concept is a new drug comes on the market, and the FDA says, okay, you need to do reproductive toxicology testing. So you have, you have to do animal studies and all that stuff. Well, animal studies, from mice in this field, what I just told you, you can do things in mice you can't do in humans. So we want to do a human bioassay for that. So we want to say, give us your drug and give us 3 months, and we'll tell you exactly what its reproductive toxicology is in a bioassay of human stem cells. It's a perfect use of stem cells. And so that's the nickel and dime, everyday use of this thing is to give companies relevant information about the drugs that they're planning to use in humans without sacrificing animals and getting someone. And I do a lot of consulting for companies that want drugs to go through the FDA, and they, so they have a drug for pulmonary hypertension or something, and they're studying it on 65-year-old men, and they have to do beagle work or mice work. So the mice testicles have a problem. They do beagle work, the beagle testicles have a problem, but it's not the same as the mouse problem. And they say, okay, you know what? You now have to spend $1.5 million on human fertility studies. And the company says, ugh. And so they do the study, and then they call me and say, can you analyze this for us and stuff and can make a statement to the FDA? And I'm like, you just did a $1 million study on 65-year-old men. We don't even know what their sperm counts are. We don't know what we don't know what their hormones are. There are no normal ranges for those guys. So, crap in, crap out. So there's nothing you can say. So it's a waste of time. This is not a waste of time for that. So, and then, another goal would be biology. So you know all about what you can do, how do you tweak this thing, what makes it work, what makes it not. So genes, it's great for academics. And then the ultimate goal I see, maybe before I die, is to see if we can make sperm in it. So this is a first too. So I got these a couple days ago. But this is the testicle, the tube. So we took that tube and we cut it up, and this is a long view of a tube with the inside of it. So here's the wall of the tube, and it's porous. And so that isn't accurate. And then these are the cells inside, and these are Sertoli cells. And they're a little bit dried out, but those are Sertoli cells. And you can't see it here because of the lighting. But this is a fluorescence view. But there are red spots here. And there are red spots here, which I can't even see, but there's here, 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 here. So those red spots are embryonic stem cells called cherry reds. So they're stained red, so you can tell them apart. So they've been in there for 2 or 3 weeks, in there loving it. So we've loaded the system with embryonic stem cells to see if they'll live. And they are. So that's what we want. We want them to live. And then we want them to change into sperm. So what the cool thing about stem cells is, they respond to their environment. So if you put it in an ovary, maybe it'll be an ovary. Maybe it becomes an egg. If you put it in a testicle, what else is it going to do? It's not become a piece of cartilage. So that's what we know. But of course, that takes stem cell scientists at Stanford to figure that out. But it's pretty cool. So that's our real first data, and it all looks very encouraging. So the question is, when's it on the market, doc? And I'd say, I don't know. I mean, you got to do safety studies, and so those aren't hard. You could take a fertile guy with sperm, and you could take biopsy from his skin, turn it into sperm, and compare the man-made sperm to the fertile sperm. We have genomic analyses. We can do all that. But there's safety studies and things like that. So, everyone's excited about it. Will we go as far as people have gone in a dish? I don't know. Will we go further than that? I don't know. But it's going beautifully. So I call that hope.
It's amazing that this technology is this just seems so futuristic. The future is now. It's great. Or not. Oh, that's you. Okay. All right. No, but that's, just looking at this crazy. In a good way crazy. Not impossible crazy, but crazy like to use stem cells in that way to create sperm. Who would have thunk it?
Well, the other thing is it's a low-hanging fruit. So there are companies that have tried to use stem cells for broken backs, and they've gotten I forgot the company now, but in San Francisco Bay Area, a company got the FDA approved for the first embryonic stem cell trial to use it for therapy, and they got fresh broken backs, so men who just broke their backs and women, and they painted their spinal cords with this stuff hoping it would regrow. And it folded after 2 years and 4 patients, and they let off 66 stem cell scientists, of which we recruited one to this project at Mandelmed. And so my feeling was that's way too big an ask of stem cells to cure a broken back. Do something more reasonable with them. Do low-hanging fruit. There's things you can do. You don't have to cure cancer and strokes and heart attack. Do simpler things. And this is very low-hanging fruit for this.
Now let me ask you this, with this on the horizon coming up, are there any cases where it's impossible to help an infertile man?
If this is true in all situations, no. But my feeling is that embryonic stem cells, which you won't be able to get, will probably do fine in this thing. And the testicular stem cells, and mapping will tell you whether you have them, would probably work fine in this machine, or the bioreactor. But I don't know if adult stem cells will do it. They're a little different. So that may be an issue. So everyone's got their theories.
But if this pans out the way you want it to be, then the answer would be...
It would be nice, yeah.
Yeah, or it'd be, yeah. Well, let's see. I think that's the end of the presentation here, but we'd like to open the floor up to any questions. Well, no, we're still here for a little while longer, unless you have somewhere to go. But wanted to open up to any questions from the audience they might have.
I got the impression that most of this touched on sperm count, but I was also interested in morphology and motility. If you could comment on those.
So you want to know more about sperm morphology and motility?
Mm-hmm.
So motility, I think, is the single best determinant of fertility in the semen analysis. So it's also, to me, the most sensitive measure of poisons in an unhealthy body. So I think of someone as an isolated low motility is a guy who's doing something wrong but not that bad, or something's happening that's not that bad, exposures. And if it's worse, you get the count hit. So you often see that with things like hot tubbing. If it's mild, it'll be a motility issue. If it's more severe, it'll be a count and motility issue. So I look at it as sort of a biomarker that way. But antioxidants are great for motility issues and things like that. So lifestyle issues are a focus of my evaluation if the motility is low. More serious things are a focus of my evaluation if the count's low. And morphology, I would say, I'm not a big fan of it. I've had post-grad courses at meetings where I've had geneticists talk about what does it mean to the genetics of that sperm if it doesn't look normal? And the answer is nothing. It has no implications. So it's like, if his book had a bad cover on it, doesn't mean it's a bad book. It has a good cover. But, yeah.
There's other reasons why it's bad.
Okay. But that it doesn't, it's judging a book by its cover, for the most part, except for 2 conditions. So there's round-headed sperm called globospermia and two-tailed sperm. And most people in the lab can figure those out because they all look the same and they all look really abnormal. So there are a couple of conditions where you can predict the chromosomal content of the sperm. But it really doesn't predict anything. And there are IVF doctors here who may know a lot, but I'm not a big fan of morphology predicting anything. So I actually don't like it.
Now in cases, I just have a question, just in my case where it was the count and the morphology and the motility, and it was just everything across the board. Is that, you say that one is a predictor of some poisons in your body, but if you got the whole full house, yeah, as healthy as like a horse.
So typically morphology is a measure of stress. So testicular health. When I see bad morphology, I don't say, well, that guy will not do well if his wife goes to IUI. That guy will not do well with IVF. I think, I've talked to Tigerberg, the morphology guy, Kruger. We've debated Menkfeld, all these guys, and no one can do it like they did it. They probably had a good study in the 80s where it predicted if you have bad-looking sperm as a population and you do IVF without ICSI, just mix them together, and they don't work very well. That's probably true in his hands, but no one can reproduce this. I mean, it's really hard, and everyone's migrating down. So the WHO just went from 14% to 4% normal is normal, 4% normal forms are normal. And they're moving all over the place. In the lab, you give the same slide to 3 technicians, you get 3 different answers. It's very difficult, it's cumbersome, it's not very predictive. But what it does do is it tells me something's going on in that testicle, it's overheated, and the product's coming out with crooked headlights and a bad paint job.
I have a wacky theory, and I'd like your, over here, a wacky theory, and I'd like your opinion on it. I believe that as we become boys and we mature, we have a new toy. And we go out there and grab any product to play with our new toy. Maybe shampoo, conditioner, lotion, whatever that is. And so when you talk about poisoning the engine, do you believe that that's a source of poison in the formation of sperms in the future? So using chemical products for masturbation in men, would that affect the creation of sperm, motility, and morphology?
So chemical products for masturbation, no. I would say chemical products for any skin topical application does very rarely get systemically. It does rarely go to the rest of the body. So now I wouldn't worry about it. But it does bring up that point, you know,
is there a connection between, because I've heard this thrown around a lot, between no sperm count and cystic fibrosis? Can you explain that a little bit?
So of the 2 forms of no sperm count,
Yes.
there's blocked and not blocked. Cystic fibrosis causes a blockage.
Okay.
And the blockage it causes is called a natural vasectomy. There's no tubes. They're missing their tubes, so the production's normal, and there's no way to get out. So it's a natural vasectomy. So they're also meant, so all cystic fibrosis patients have no vas deferens, 99.9. So they're naturally infertile. But there are also a group of men without cystic fibrosis who have a mutation for it, so it's a chromosomal issue, so 1 hit, you're okay, 2 hits, you've got it. Who don't have cystic fibrosis who have a blockage. And it only came out because they cloned the CF gene in 1989. In 1990, these guys got looked at with the same genomics, the same molecular biology, and found, oh my God, they have the same issues, just milder forms. So I see those all the time, yeah. And so the risk is not to the guy. The guy's a healthy guy. And I gave this lecture at Stanford every year to the Cystic Fibrosis Society. And I love it. I mean, I sit there and the first thing I say for the last 3 years, because they've only asked me for 3 years, is, I'm honored to be here. And they say, why? And I say, because you're alive long enough to think about having kids. Because you're dead at 37. In 1950, you're dead at 5 months. In 1960, you're dead at 5 years. And, you know, Pulmozyme came out and the Genentech drugs, and now people are living, and we predict that someone born today would live to 55, almost a full lifespan with CF. But it is deadly. So what you worry about with the carrier, unaffected man, is the transmission of the disease to the children, because the goal is a healthy kid.
And is that, if there is a blockage, is that the percentage of men with being carriers, is that higher, or is it,
Yeah,
is
so
it necessarily that they have it?
If you have no vas deferens, your chance of having a mutation is 80%. You know, what complicates the field is that the CF gene has 1,800 mutations. And so there's panels of mutations. So you look at the first 100 and then make panels, but they're geared for Northern European descent. So I had a guy in the office who was half Korean, half German, and his wife was Asian. Beautiful couple. And he's got this problem. And so if you do the regular test, he had the regular test, and it was negative. So he thought, well, you know, someone had thought ahead. It was really a good test, but it wasn't designed for him because it varies by ethnicity. So he sat there and basically said, well, you know, we're going to go to IVF because there's low risk. I'm negative, she's negative. And I said, just wait a minute. We published a paper on this. You know, the test wasn't designed for you. You have to clone the whole gene. So you can do that now. You can actually get all 1,800 mutations, a company in LA, and you can clone the whole gene, targeted sequencing, and you can figure out exactly which one is missing, because there's going to be one missing on that guy, 8 out of 10 chances. They just didn't catch it on the panel. And couples like this, you check them, and they may have a 1 in 4 chance of having a CF child. If she has 399, he has 480, and they're both typical mutations, it's a problem. And the genetic counselors go through all that, and they have them all, and you know, they'll give you the right answer. And it's not about making decisions for you, it's about telling you what your risk is. Because, you know, when a man with no sperm count has a kid, he doesn't care about his no sperm count after that.
Well, looking at the old clock on the floor here. It seems that unfortunately, our time has ended, but I'd like to thank our live and our online audience for joining. Please share your views, continue the conversation on Twitter or Facebook at #fertility or #FPS13. Always like the Twitter. And also you can view any or all these programs at fertilityplanet.com for free all weekend and then on demand starting Monday, January 14th. Thank you, Ustream, for recording all the programs. And I'd especially like to thank Dr. Turek for coming and sharing his expertise and this amazing information. I can't wait to get one of those artificial testicles and put it right next to the espresso machine on the kitchen. I think it'll look great. Probably make, hell of a cup of coffee or something. But thank you very much for coming. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Add some features to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? But thank you very much for joining us. Thanks.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This panel is Financial Planning for Family Building. I'm going to introduce everyone on our panel. We have Davina Fankhauser. She is a trained educator and counselor and is the co-founder and president of Fertility Within Reach. Through education and coaching, Fertility Within Reach aims to empower infertile individuals to advocate in order to build their family. Davina is driven to teach others how to advocate for themselves in the hope that they will be spared the pain and heartache known to accompany infertility, especially when denied access to timely and appropriate treatment. And Davina will be our moderator today. Then our first panelist is Nicole Lawson. As a caseworker for a Los Angeles-based surrogacy agency and also the co-founder of BabyQuest Foundation, Nicole understands the necessity of making advanced procedures a reality rather than a dream. BabyQuest is a charitable organization whose goal is to grant financial assistance to those who cannot afford the high cost of procedures such as egg donation, IVF, and surrogacy. Catherine Kakoff-Manos is the co-founder of Global IVF, the one and only informational website geared towards fertility patients searching for answers about traveling abroad for IVF treatments. Catherine also runs a successful surrogacy agency and fertility consulting business, Agency for Surrogacy Solutions and Agency for Fertility Solutions. Working with clients from all over the world, the companies have been thriving since 2004. Wendy Hartman and the law offices of Wendy Hartman are devoted to assisting clients with estate, business, and taxation planning. A significant portion of her practice is devoted to advising same-sex couples regarding estate planning, family formation, adoption, and taxation matters. Wendy lectures frequently to both community and professional groups in the areas of estate taxations, as well as on the evolving domestic partnership laws and estate planning and taxation for same-sex couples. So thank you, all of you, for joining us today. And with that, I will hand it over to Davina.
I have a microphone, I got. I just like to stand. My name's Davina Fankhauser, and I was an infertility patient for 15 years. And we lived in states without mandated benefits, and even when we did, in Massachusetts and Texas, our employers were self-insured, and so they didn't have to cover infertility treatment. And we made all of our medical decisions based on finances and fears, and it was pretty costly in the long run. And then I did eventually build my family. I have 2 amazing kids, and I started to lobby at the state and national level because I thought everyone deserves access to timely and appropriate health care when it comes to infertility. And I was successful. So at the Massachusetts State House, they updated the definition of infertility, and now women over 35 can gain access to benefits after 6 months of trying. And I just thought, if I can make this happen, I can teach anybody to do this. So we pulled all of our tools and resources and research, and we've created step-by-step instructions. Here's how you effectively communicate with your employer. Here's how you write an insurance appeal. Here's how you ask for an exemption of benefits. And time is going to pass anyway while you're trying to build your family. Have an opportunity to do something that empowers yourself and might not only help you, but others and maybe your own children one day. So you can learn more about Fertility Within Reach at our website, fertilitywithinreach.org, or we're booth 220. Thank you. All right, now, Nicole. And let me just say, all of these women are a pleasure to know, and I so respect the opportunity to be in this field with them. So Nicole, you had your experience with infertility. You built your family so far through surrogacy. And can you tell us about all the different costs involved in your journey and how you and your family managed to arrange to get the funds that you needed?
I first, let me see these slides. I'm first just going to want to introduce myself. My name is Nicole Lawson, and I'm co-founder of the Baby Quest Foundation, which is an organization that provides financial assistance to those who cannot afford the high cost of infertility treatments. My story and struggles to have a child are most likely similar to some of yours. My husband and I started to try to have a baby when I was 28, young, healthy. I figured, okay, it's going to happen right away. Who thinks that they're not going to get pregnant at 28? To my surprise, by the age of 31, I had endured a few miscarriages, had a few surgeries, way too many tears, and those tears is what we can all relate to here today. It's not fun, infertility, and it's not something that you choose to go through, and it should not be that difficult to have a baby and to worry about how much it's going to cost and to break your bank. I feel very blessed to sit here today and share my story of why my mom and I started Baby Quest. 3 years ago next week, my husband Josh and I welcomed our most precious little girl via a surrogate, and I stare at her every day and know how fortunate we are. But without the financial help from our parents, we would not have this child. We'd spent most of our own personal savings on all the initial rounds of IVF and testing, and it's truly heartbreaking to know that some of you are in that same position today. After my daughter was born, I decided to leave my job in entertainment to work for an LA-based surrogacy agency called Alternative Conceptions. I felt that was my calling, and I wanted to share my experiences and struggles to guide others through their own experience. In addition to that, in 2011, Baby Quest was formed. Baby Quest is unique in accepting applications from same-sex couples, singles, as well as heterosexual couples. Applicants can be treated by their doctor of choice. There's no geographic restrictions, and recipients can live in the United States, as long as recipients live in the United States. Although we are a relatively new charity, we have already awarded 9 grants, which we are so proud of. Our Reno couple will deliver the first Baby Quest baby this March 2013. It's amazing just seeing the tears of her finally finding out that she was pregnant is just, it's priceless. And it meant so much to my mom and I. Still, the challenge to sustain our momentum is daunting. As a nonprofit functioning in a difficult economy, we're constantly attempting to increase public awareness of our existence and gather sufficient donations to raise as much money as possible. We are a completely volunteer organization. Just my mom and I. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about the many people who don't have those additional funds to just try one round of IVF. That's why we started Baby Quest, to try to help others make their dreams come true. Please stop by our booth today. We're actually at booth 220. We are raffling off, yes, we are sharing a booth together, Davina and I. We are raffling off a full medical consultation with one of our board reproductive endocrinologists, Mark Kalin, who's speaking here this weekend. And if you have any questions that you don't feel comfortable asking here, we're there to answer those questions. I know I didn't answer your question because I wanted to just talk about Baby Quest first. So
that's okay.
It's
your birthday present.
It's my birthday. Yeah. It's my birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. Do you want me to?
Can we come back?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries.
I have to. Catherine.
Yeah.
Catherine.
Yes. Did you have
your-
a question? Or no, I'll just start. Hi, I'm Catherine Kakoff-Manis. Let's see if I've got a slide up here. And my company, I have 2 companies, Global IVF, which is a free informational website for people looking to travel for treatment and in many cases save money. I also have a surrogacy agency for surrogacy solutions, and I have a success case sitting next to me, former client.
Excuse me, sorry.
I too can empathize with the struggles that people are going through. I one day counted that my husband and I went through over 100 embryos, 6 fresh IVF cycles, 3 frozen, 2 surrogates, and an egg donor to get to the point where we were parents of children. I have identical boy twins that were carried by a surrogate, and they're 9 years old. So my struggle was for a while ago, but my heart is with you when people come up and talk to me. And every day I assist helping people. And what happened is I eventually started my surrogacy agency because I really felt passionate that this was a wonderful way to create my family when I had no other options for myself. And clients would come to me, and it's very expensive to do surrogacy in the United States. And they would always say, what else can I do? And I'd say, even if I give you a free cycle from us and there's no agency fee, it's still, I can't, the costs are really prohibitive. And they're like, well, where else can I go? And this was years ago, and I said, oh, I saw on Oprah that you can go to India. And they're like, well, where do you go? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm a researcher and also somebody that really wants to help people and to learn and assist. That's really become my mission in life. And I got on the web, and what I found out is that it's really hard to tell where to go. Everybody's site looks really good or bad, and then there's all, you know, this place is bad, this place is good, and I said, why isn't there one website where I can start going to get information about traveling for treatment to save money? And there wasn't one, and that was when I created, as I said, Global IVF. And what it is, it's for people traveling for treatment, and for this, not that it's relevant here, but it's for people traveling both ways. People come to the United States because we do have really top medical care here, but you have to have finances, and they're really, you know, it is hard to afford things. And so we created that for people traveling. And if you come to our website, there's all kinds of information that you can get, you know, tips on traveling for treatment. And what I never really even say that I advocate traveling for treatment. What I say is if this is the choice that you make, you need to be informed. You need to know what you're getting into. It's not apples to apples, and it's not always the same thing. You're not getting the same treatment when you go abroad, but you are definitely saving funds. What I do is very rewarding, and I used to, you know, how I got to this from my own personal stories, but I also used to be a television producer, and my business partner was too, and I say I used to produce TV, and now I help produce babies, and the outcome is so much more rewarding. And, you know, and I do. My goal is to help educate people, whether it's assisting with surrogacy and educating with their options. Egg donation, I don't have egg donors, but I went through the process myself. It can be daunting, and sometimes you need just a person that has nothing invested in what you do to help you, and the same thing in traveling for treatment.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wendy?
Hi, I'm Wendy Hartman, and please bear with me, I'm getting over laryngitis. If you can't hear me, just let me know. I'm a tax and estate planning attorney, but I've really devoted the last several years of my practice to working with young couples, many same-sex couples, and a lot of my clients are young couples before they create their families or starting to have their families. I've got lesbian couples where they're going through a sperm bank to designate a sperm donor, or they're going through egg donation because they can't carry it with their own eggs. I've got gay couples, a couple of gentlemen, one going through it right now, and they're so excited in the process. They're going through the process where they designated an egg donor, they designated the surrogate, they went through several agencies and interviewed several agencies. And what was interesting is in many of the cases, the agencies themselves require specific language in the documentation. So I prepare documentation. I don't do the surrogacy agreements, but I do the estate planning documents, or the wills, the trust, the healthcare directives, which are really critical for basically every couple, but very specifically for same-sex couples or young couples who aren't married, because they have no legal protections. So we want to make sure that the documentation they prepare is sufficient to be able to allow their partners to make decisions. They want to both be able to be involved in the process of making decisions for their child, their children. So it's very important, it's really critical that documentation is done right. I came to this panel kind of talking about some of the financial aspects and the estate planning aspects. So if you have questions, I'll talk a little bit more about specific documents in a minute, but I don't want to get into too much detail in the actual documentation. But what's important to learn is that every couple is very different. And every couple I sit down with has different reasons for wanting to become parents. They have different ways of going about it. And in my particular case, it's very important because no two couples are the same. And we sit down and we start from scratch with every couple in the sense of, what are you doing? What have you thought about? Have you gone to family for financing? It's nice to learn about Nicole's company as a possible source for funding. Wells Fargo is now offering some funding. So there's different agencies and organizations out there that we're learning about as we go through the process with different clients.
Great, thank you. Now we're going to actually open it up to questions from you. We have a question. And we have a microphone coming to you right now.
We could probably hear you.
Good afternoon. My question is for Nicole. Do you deal with independent surrogates that are not in an agency? They just want to help a couple out to have kids.
Yeah.
So.
Personally, no, but normally, I work for an agency, so of course you would have to go through the agency, but I do have a lot of knowledge about it, so if there was ever any questions, I would be happy to ask you, but it's not something that we handle personally.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
A couple of questions.
Can I?
Yeah, do you want to answer more
Yeah,
to that?
could I add a little to that question? Sure. And I don't know if I can get my slides up again because...
Maybe not the slides, but
Oh,
because we have multiple questions in the audience and we only have time for 2 or 3.
I just wanted to put this up here for financing. I'm sorry, I was just going to say, for financing, when you're looking at surrogacy, it is very expensive in the United States, and there are options abroad in a few different countries, and the savings can be quite substantial. Okay.
Thank you. Next question.
Regular medical health insurance. I always thought, I worked for a large investment bank. I always thought that my health insurance was top of the line, and it has proven that case in other areas. But when it comes to fertility, it's non-existent. And I was just reading an article that said in California, insurers have to offer you, there's an option to buy fertility coverage. I went to my human resources department. I explained to them our situation, and I didn't get any answers. So I'm confused, and I'm a lawyer. So
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, I need help.
There are difference in mandates. There's a mandate to offer, like in California, and a mandate to cover. And a mandate to offer means the insurance provider must offer an infertility package to the employer, but the employer is not mandated to pick it up. In addition, in California, the mandate to offer is for infertility benefits, excluding IVF. Now, some employers may choose to carry IVF, but they are not mandated to offer IVF as a part of that infertility benefit. Yet. Yeah, who's with me? I'll work with you. We can do this. I'm not kidding. We can do this.
Can I ask a question on that? Do
Yeah.
you know if in 2014 with Obamacare that's going to change?
So what would happen with that, with the essential health benefits that was selected by California through Kaiser, does not carry infertility benefits. So those who would be applying for like Medicare type coverage and they get this essential benefit package from California, it does not include it there. Because it does not include it there, it will be unlikely there would be a different fertility mandate, because if a state offers a new mandate, they then have to pay for those people with the essential health benefits. However, what I did in Massachusetts, when we updated the definition, it wasn't creating a new mandate, it was a clarification of the existing mandate. So that's the approach to use in a state like California, is you're clarifying things. I thought there was a question.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks to the panel. I have a question, we have a question regarding, and the slide's very helpful, but specifically to surrogacy, and it's not necessarily financial, but the timing, from the time that you would decide to look down the path of surrogacy and with an egg donor, how long of a process, and then if you are first looking at that, what would be the suggested first steps?
So I'm going to have Nicole answer that first.
You can be, once you sign with an agency, you can be matched with a surrogate depending upon your specifications on what you want in your surrogate or your egg donor as quickly as a month. It could take up to 6 months. It really depends on exactly what you're looking for. If you want a specific surrogate who has blonde hair, it's going to take 6 months. If you're not as picky, or you just, you find the one and you're matched, right away, it could be as quickly as a month. Of course, there are different steps involved with surrogacy. You have your, it's extremely important to have a legal agreement with your surrogate and your egg donor. So that takes, that's a step involved in there. But again, I would average, about a month to, 4 months is about the average. As far as, I'm not sure exactly where you are in your steps right now, but if you are just seeing, an OB doctor and you think that you are going to need a surrogate or an egg donor, I would suggest making an appointment with a reproductive endocrinologist. If you're in Los Angeles, I'm happy to give you a few names. There's a bunch of booths out here of amazing doctors who would be happy to speak with you. But you can come talk to me afterwards as well, and I can give you a few names if it's not something you're familiar with yet.
Catherine, did you have anything to add?
That each agency has a different time frame as far as how long it takes to match. That's one agency. Our agency is 1 day, depending if we have the right person for you, to 3 months is the longest that it's taken. But most people have their, it depends on your requirements, as she said. The other thing is with an egg donor, the search, you need to be doing them together, not one or the other. But the thing about an egg donor is there can be a wait, especially if you're looking at somebody that's a proven egg donor. The egg donors that everybody likes are often picked, so you might have to wait for that egg donor. So that said, surrogates understand that and are willing to wait, but egg donors are, they're in college or they're working. They're not as flexible with their schedule and the waiting. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. But from your first call or from your match until transfer, if your egg donor is ready, is about 2.5 to 3 months.
Do we have any other questions? Oh, great. Okay.
What should you really be looking? Hi. What should you be really looking in when picking a surrogate? Like what, other than obviously health or stuff like that, what are some maybe questions or concerns you should have going into picking the right surrogate for you?
Okay, first I'm going to have Catherine do it this time.
Can I ask, are you looking for independently or are you working with an agency? Okay, so if you're looking independently, there's websites or people that you want somebody that had healthy pregnancies. A lot of people might offer, or a friend might say, oh, I want to do this. There's so much involved. It is not the same as your own pregnancy. There is much more accountability. That you don't have the same freedom as a surrogate. So you want someone that has an easygoing personality, a very good support system, healthy pregnancies, term, if not term, what were the reasons for not term? Because sometimes there's a reason that a doctor delivered early that is no indication that she would deliver early again, so you have to look at it. You want to look at her insurance. There are specialists that will assist you in the reproductive field because you want to make sure her insurance will cover a surrogacy pregnancy. Some insurance companies will not cover a surrogacy pregnancy, but they'll cover other pregnancies. There's a lot of intricacies, and sometimes having an agency on as a consultant to assist you to kind of see some of the red flags is a good idea. Lawyers, reproductive lawyers, sometimes are able to add that assistance also. And you will save money when you go independently, but sometimes, it's also you take on a huge amount of responsibility and headache and stress that you don't have when a good agency is involved in the picture. They take that away, but you have to weigh it out. There's, a fee for the agency that can be hefty, and are you willing to take on that, responsibility and headache?
Nicole, do you want to add anything?
I think you covered it pretty well.
Of course. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Either through your own experience or from clients that you've seen, how are you or they able to afford, the process of this?
Well, some of them that we see are older, in their 40s who have established their careers and now all of a sudden they want a child. So for them, they can afford it. Other people, they go to family, they sell their homes. Yes, I've had clients who've sold homes just so they could afford a surrogate, which it's heartbreaking that somebody has to do that. They pretty much will do anything they can to be able to afford this. And there aren't a lot of, they refinance their houses. They, again, they can take out a loan. It just, that all adds up. And again, that's why this organization was started, to hopefully one day be able to help a couple. Of course, surrogacy is expensive, so right now we've just funded IVFs and IUIs, but hopefully one day we will be able to help a couple have a surrogate. But
It's okay to just...
That's okay. I just wanted to, that was my experience for 15 years. So we used our Roth IRAs. My husband had stocks through his employer, and we cashed those in and used that to help fund our treatment. We did everything we could afford to do without really putting tremendous stress on ourselves. And then eventually we found a non-group insurance policy, which we paid through the roof for, but it was less than an IVF cycle. And we were able to at least get some funding for it, not for all of our treatment, but for part of it. It just took a while to find those. Like she said, you can ask people, but you can also, there are financial programs out there where you can take loans. There are clinics that have shared cycles where you pay half the cost of an IVF cycle. So there are various options out there. And we'll answer your question as soon as Catherine has a chance to respond.
So global IVF, not everybody is interested in traveling, but when you're looking at the cost of a surrogacy with an agency in the United States, you're probably looking at anywhere between $80,000 and $110,000, which is a huge amount of money. I mean, it could be a little less, could be a little more, but when you're going to, and I'm not advocating it, but if you go to the Ukraine, you're looking at about $50,000 with travel, so it's at least half the price. If you go to India, there's $20,000 and $30,000. Again, I'm not saying you are not looking, it's not the same. If you have the money, I would stay here. There's so much more control, there's so much more protection, you understand the medical system, but if you don't have those funds, there are other options, and our website is there to educate and make good choices.
I would also say, when if you're a cash patient, ask your doctor, is this your cash price? Because sometimes the fee they give you is the fee that they're going to bill the insurance company, and the insurance company always negotiates a lower price that they reimburse the clinic. And you want your cash paying price to be about the same as what they're reimbursed from the insurance company. So you can, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when my clients come to me and we sit down in the early process, we're looking at family loans, we're looking at 401ks, Roth IRAs, we're looking at any pension assets they might have, family savings. They may wait a couple of years. I have several couples that waited 3 to 5 years because they were able to put away a certain amount of money each year and they didn't really want to have to finance it. Many of the companies now are offering self-funding, so they're assisting the clients in financing it. Many of the doctors here in the Los Angeles area, I understand, also assist in getting funding and loans for the clients. So there are options out there, but it's difficult.
And if you have the flexibility to change employers, I just wrote a blog on our website, and it has a long list of employers in California that offer some form of infertility benefits. So there are businesses in California that do provide. So if you have some flexibility and you can change your employer, check out the list on the website.
They're going to receive a flex.
That's an excellent point, though, because a lot of businesses will reimburse for costs towards adoption. So you can ask them if they'll do it towards this as well.
Exactly. Question.
Yeah, so, wow, okay, I talk loud. One of the other ways that I've seen some people funding in newest ways is crowdfunding. So where somebody puts on the web, hey, I need help to pay for my, for building my family, and that's one way to, get your community, your family outreach, and everybody involved in the family building process.
That is a great reminder. I actually just came across a website called IVF and then the number 4 and then everyone, IVFforeveryone.com. And they help you do a crowdfunding page. They help you look at your credit score to see if you could get a loan. They help. It's a great resource and it's free. So it's good thinking.
Yeah, and then on the international route, I ended up doing 3 rounds in Holland for less than 1 round in the United States. So it's possible to go abroad. I spent 3 months abroad, so January, March, and June of 1 year were the times of my 3 cycles, and that cost of 3 rounds did include my lodging and my rent-a-car and my food.
Wow. That's great.
Bada boom.
Did you like it? Good experience?
Well, I was not successful, but that's okay. But that's not the point.
But the experience.
But the experience was good. I'm an adventurer at heart, so going abroad was no problem for me. But once everybody in Holland knows that you speak English, then they speak English back. So that wasn't a problem either for me. But I was able to be much more relaxed because I didn't have all the pressures of home being on me, and I was just able to take long walks in the woods and really actually focus on being grounded during that time.
Nice. We have a question over here.